morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from, because I have two of my friends here. And we are really going to talk about a whole bunch of things. It's a fairly free flowing conversation. It's a conversation on various themes that have come up in the course of our work. And, the context of this is sometime back. I had built something along with ZingHR called the Outcomation Index, which was how do we measure the impact of HR. So this was really all about the Outcomation Index. Instead of everybody introducing themselves, we are going to make an attempt to introduce each other. Rituparna Chakraborty. Rituparna was heading Team Lee. She was one of the co-founders. She loves travel. The little thread roll for which you use for kites, which is you can see in the background.
Always that way. My chat with Abhijit is always that's why so fruitful, because after I speak to him, I think for the next 3 months I feel very good about myself. So thank you so much.
I know Abhijit for the last 10, 12 years. Abhijit has been a friend, advisor, and worked across the spectrum of multinationals, including Microsoft. Now settled in, we have exported him to the US to do some work there. And now he's working with us on various aspects. The best part of Abhijit is as fresh across 24 hours. And like Ritu said, he puts people to ease. Whenever I meet an HR professional in the industry, they all say, Abhijit has taught me. And I think 90% of the people I meet in the HR who are heading HR saying, no, Abhijit has taught me so much.
First time I met probably a decade back. And, it's the fact that we are all today talking about HR tech, HR SaaS, but Prasad essentially thought about the potential and the opportunity this particular realm, this particular industry can possibly have way back, much before many people in the talent ecosystem were probably even thinking about it. And I think through the ups and downs, I think I've seen Prasad stay resilient, grow ZingHR to what it is today. And the fact that recently I saw the smooth transition that ZingHR is happening to entering into the world of AI, it really fills my heart with a lot of delight and satisfaction that you're actually taking the lead. I wish his kind of passion and that's the kind of fun I think I wish for every entrepreneur and founders out there.
When you think about one of the big things everybody talks about is AI. How is that changing what the board cares about?
Yes, so far, most boards have been focused on financial performance, on risk management, on thinking about long-term strategy. But what I see is that AI very quickly is evolving into a very integral part of the conversation. And it's becoming an important agenda for many boards to focus on. And I think, to try and explain to you how that essentially is turning into a boardroom priority, I think the whole aspect of AI governance and ethical risk, I think it's a very important subject that boards are thinking about, because they're realizing that AI is not just about efficiency. Along with it comes a lot of responsibility. So how do we prevent biases in AI? What are the different kinds of ethical risks while deploying AI in decision making? And so I think these are some of the governance related conversations related to AI I've seen boards engaging in. Also, AI has a competitive advantage. I think clearly the word digital, and especially I've seen how the world was before COVID and after COVID. Before COVID, digital transformation was like a cool thing, nice to have, and we know what has happened today. So I think today AI is a clear competitive differentiator. So often boards are asking management that are we using AI to unlock new markets? Are we using AI to personalize experience with customers? Are we trying to make that as a key tool to differentiate from competitors? So workforce transformation, I think most people are worried about AI replacing people, but AI isn't just about replacing tasks. It's also trying to redefine many of the job roles within organizations. So boards are essentially trying to think beyond headcount and focus on what we call the skill count. So are we reskilling our workforce fast enough, and how are we leveraging AI to kind of the adoption of AI to kind of ensure that this is happening at workplaces? Also, regulatory compliance and data privacy. I think that's a much talked about topic, and this is something which is going to be very key and is becoming key for boards. So all the kind of AI related regulations which are evolving worldwide, there's a lot of chitter chatter around it. EU is taking huge, is leapfrogging into kind of devising AI Act. What's going to happen in India? What should we anticipate and be prepared for? So I think boards have started scrutinizing AI policies as much as they are scrutinizing financial statements. So I think what I'm seeing is that clearly boardrooms are shifting thanks to AI from a compliance-focused mindset to a foresight-driven one. And I think that's the key change that we should all be witnessing in more and more boardrooms.
Possibly looking at moving beyond efficiency, which is, I think, a first step that, how can you do something faster, to, if I were to use another phrase, which is that how do you get into blank spaces, things that you haven't done. So really redefining business models and discovering new customer types. These are some of the ways in which boards are having conversations with the organizations to say, this is how you can change the business. This is another aspect. Prasad, would you say that you've seen something similar happening with your customers? What have you seen?
Boards have changed their narrative, but there's also another interesting thing. Many boards are as vague about what is to be done, but they know for sure that AI has to be adopted. So there is a lot of responsibility on the next level management team to come out what can AI do. Okay, if we leave about the hype of saying I want to upskill, I want to automate, I think there's a lot of responsibility of an HR and HR tech people to say how it's going to change the business, how it's going to even change the top line. It might even change the business line of the people. And of course, like Ritu said, skill building competencies, everyone, at least we do about 1,200 customers. I can tell you without exception, everyone is now paranoid saying how do I change the company's DNA, including themselves. The good part is I'm seeing a lot of boards wanting to get educated themselves and changing. I will not be able to give name, but I know one of the largest companies, their chairman and MD is saying, I want to learn AI and say how it's going to impact my teams, my core level teams. So I think it's a huge change which is imperative, and boards, fortunately, boards are now taking it positively and making the change.
It's moving from customer experience design and employee experience design. So there is a lot of focus on what you can do to design experiences, whether for customers or for employees.
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody is running quite quickly in the direction where quickly they want to now figure out how generative AI can be used to kind of improve customer experience. But before that, I think, Abhijit, we must admit that still the mindset is, of course, is that, because of the existence of generative AI and AI, can we quickly make that as a reason for us to reduce costs? And especially on the customer experience side. So that's, I think, is a bit of a problem, which I'm seeing that in the harakiri, you're trying to reduce your customer experience team while the entire model of actually deploying it to replace the human, which is currently providing the customer experience, is fully not created or is not working optimally. So I think that's the reason there is, I think right now, many organizations are going through the phase where there is a huge vacuum when it comes to customer experience, because you've let go of the people, but your AI has really not scaled up, or your investments in AI have not scaled up to be able to actually replace it. And I think that's where boards have to honestly delve deeper, that yes, you are providing shareholder value, you are honestly showing that you're reducing cost, your per unit efficiencies are going up, but what's happening to customers? Is that at the cost and expense of the loyalty and the long tail of customers that you've been building, because experience is suffering? So I actually think that it's a great opportunity for sure, but I think it needs to be timed well. It needs to be done in a full-hearted manner. Right now, I feel that you're trying to dabble in a few experiments here and there, but there is no full commitment towards using AI, because we must understand AI deployment is expensive. Of course, DeepSeek is obviously asking all the right questions, whether it is that expensive or not. But till we are clear about it, I think we should stay committed. We need to do the full hog, and I'm sure and I'm very confident that one will benefit. And the organizations who are doing it, Abhijit, are actually benefiting. I mean, I'm on a few financial services boards. I mean, how beautifully they are able to leverage the open AI infrastructure that Bhashini or Bhasha, is that the language open architecture created, the multilingual architecture, and how that is being used to communicate with customers, because English cannot be the only one language where you're becoming richer, even a country like India where you're reaching out to like God knows how many 30 plus languages. So how essentially you give the full experience, where the people who earlier used to call and speak to someone in a Kannada or a Telugu or a Hindi doesn't feel left out because they are forced to talk in English. So I guess this is essentially where you have to really go deep and push the right buttons and nudge the management to be fully committed to using AI to the advantage of customer experience. I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for. That's what I'm seeing in customer experience now.
Absolutely. And this is really like saying that you need to do performance management of AI, to really start looking at what is it that AI is really value adding.
Oh, absolutely. I think you can't use this like a status symbol. AI is not that. AI, when you become committed to AI, you have to be prepared for everything, the consequences of it, the fact that in the short run, it's costing a few jobs of some individuals within the organization. But does that mean that? But it also means you're creating more new different job roles. You are having to create a different ecosystem of skills and capabilities within the organizations now. And hence, is there a plan to even develop it? Because you can't. It's very easy to let go of people, but then there are new job roles emerging. Do we have the skills internally or externally to be able to fulfill those? So I guess organizations have to think this through, plan, and keep a long sight on it. AI is not something that is fashionable. Just AI can actually transform businesses, provided you actually first yourself understand how it can benefit your organization, what aspects of it, to what extent, and then take a step forward. Otherwise, just flippantly using AI, or we are using AI, we are using machine learning, because I've heard a lot of that. But what exactly are you using it for? Do people internally understand? Is everyone in the organization committed to making AI happen? From an efficiency perspective, because it's otherwise, I mean, if you're not doing it, I don't think you will see the result of it, and you'll flounder. You'll spend a lot of money unnecessarily, and there'll be no execution at the end of the day. So I think we all know what AI can do by now, by and large, I feel. Or at least people who wish to know really will know, because there's enough information.
The design principles I like to use is to actually create continuous processes in all the things that are being done. So for example, hiring. You can't just hire when somebody's left, because then you are inevitably taking the person who's applied for you, rather than actually knowing that here are 3 people who are going to be able to do something better than what's been done. So it's a continuous process. Talk about learning. If you are going to, suddenly put everybody into, what I see happening in many organizations at the year end, you have a budget which is left. How do we use it? Put everybody into a training program, churn out the numbers, and then sort of say everybody went through 20 hours of training. That's actually such a, fairly ineffective method of doing it. Instead, if you are able to do this on an ongoing basis, you'll find everybody's, performance actually going up. So the whole process of learning, the whole process of performance management, hiring, anything that you are looking at, onboarding, all of them are things that you do on a continuous basis. Again, everybody talks about 30-day, 60-day, 90-day plans. Onboarding, I think, at the end of the day, you want to not just get the person to be performing at their very best, but you also want actually the outcomes of that performance to be seen in the benefit of the organization also. So if you sort of really look at the so what element of onboarding, Onboarding is to make sure that somebody is really going to be able to start contributing and making the impact for which the role has been created. So then if you are looking at that, I think it takes a very, very sharply different way in which we are looking at any of these HR processes, whether, and that I think is the opportunity that technology offers, not just AI, but in general, if you design it with that perspective, then I think you are really creating things which, can really make a world of a difference. How do you measure social impact of, the HR initiatives? What are social, measures? I mean, I can think of, you do the stakeholder survey and sort of really ask them, but are there other measures by which we can really think about measuring this impact?
I think the long tail of impact that HR does, finally the role of HR, I mean, is in any organization. I mean, I know many people think HR has a thankless job, to be honest, and sometimes do not get as much credit for the work that they do. But the fact that you are essentially keeping a ship together within a firm, within an organization, and also the fact that all the effort that you're putting in terms of skilling, upgrading, in terms of ensuring their mental health has a impact which is beyond workplaces, which means that feeling, that skill that you have helped them build, or that tenacity or that feeling of positivity, the confidence, is not something that is only limited to that organization. I feel that HR actually has a big role to play to kind of ensure that at large, the talent ecosystem of the country essentially is vibrant, it's motivated, it's eager. So from that perspective, I feel HR has a huge contribution in terms of how at last the social ecosystem that works within a country. I don't know whether I can make that connection, but what I feel is that entire thing essentially is riding on the responsibility of this is riding on the shoulder of the HR fraternity. And skilling as an aspect, if I were to just call it out, Abhijit, as a single one, I mean, if you're able to successfully build a culture of skilling within an organization and learning, it has an impact which is again much, much beyond the scope of the organization. I think it helps finally always believing that the government is going to take the responsibility. Yeah, government has its own set of responsibilities in creating an ecosystem of a healthy ecosystem of learning, protecting the workforce, and so on and so forth. But we somehow do not understand or underestimate the impact the human resource or the talent custodians of organizations actually have in terms of creating that ecosystem. So I personally feel that I know we don't think much on those lines, but even wellness, for example, even if the organization invests in wellness, it's not that wellness is limited to the four corners of the organization. If you're investing in their wellness, it has impact on what happens outside of work and how they conduct themselves outside of work. So I think many of these initiatives actually have a much more wider social impact in any case than what the organization benefits from. And HR has been taking up that responsibility for as long as I can think of. Prasad, I don't know what you think of it.
No, I agree. It's much larger thing. I can slightly different additional take, not different. I think what the mistake we do is we think all employees are seekers. I think make them givers. I'll give a small example. We brought ESG is a boardroom discussion. We brought ESG into the last level people. So we created a rewards and recognition system where employees does whatever badges they get, say 1,000 points. They can buy a pizza, go for a movie, or work in a old age home for 4 hours, or give to someone like Akshay Patra. Our experience is we make people more, like I always say, when somebody gives me, I feel happy. But when I'm able to gift, I'm much happier. So as an HR, I think we should make people more happier than just happy. So we've got organ donation. And I think I'm happy to say some of our large customers are buying this logic and creating where they are able to do something for themselves, for the family, for the neighborhood. And then that is a much larger impact, social impact. No, I think that's where the culture building will come in. It's not just to say how much you're going to pay, how many incentives, and whether you build a gym or not. I think those all taken for granted. But can you make a ecosystem, a company of givers for their families, friends, and the society? Then you're building a nation. Then you build.
If an organization really works to future-proof the employee, which means tomorrow, if for whatever reason the employee and the organization have to part ways, the person is able to stay employed and stays relevant. So investing in future-proofing the employee is a very powerful way to demonstrate social impact, because otherwise what happens is, when some employees are let go, they struggle to find another alternative employment. That's proof of a terrible employer. So that's my first definition. I would sort of say that extend that whole timeline. The second piece that I would sort of really say is that the ripple effect of the wellness that you create. People who enjoy their work, they are able to be innovative, they are able to do far more. And also when they go back home, this whole notion of going back home drained and angry and frustrated and all of that, instead of that venom that you're sort of carrying back, you go back positive. That's an impact on a social system. Likewise, when that same person wants to return to work, instead of getting up in the morning and say, oh my God, I have to go to work today, or rather sort of saying that it's a weekend, another 2 days to go for the weekend. That mindset is indicative that there is a lot more that needs to be done. So the ability to create that is, I think, the real challenge. It's not about, how do you sort of do it through tangible measures like money, etc., all of that. I mean, yes, that's necessary, but not sufficient. I think the sufficiency comes when you extend the impact beyond the role to outside, beyond the time inside to outside. So, I would use that measure, but, which brings us to the end of this conversation.
Like I said, privileged to have someone like Ritu on share her views. Really happy from our side, Ritu. Look forward to have much more meaningful engagements. Quite a lot to learn from both of you. Thank you and see you soon.
Ritu,
yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. No, I think it was fantastic. I was tempted to kind of go on certain points and issues because they're so pertinent, but I'm wary of the time. And so I had a lovely time, and all the best to you, Prasad, and Abhijit, again, lifelong admirer. And I'm one of those learners that Abhijit has adopted long ago. So thank you so much, Abhijit. Thank you so much, Prasad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Abhijit, like we always say, Abhijit Bhaduri's name starts with A and ends with I.
So I have AI built into my name. That's my parents thought of AI long before AI was a thing. So thank you so much for being here. Goodbye.